Fibers stay, crossing over each other like tiny bridges. You press the map between absorbent sheets to pull out more water, then lay it to dry. When it is dry, you size it with glue or starch, so ink does not spread like gossip. That is it. A page is nothing but bullied plants that learn to hold their shape. They hold your thoughts too, which is a fun insult to human pride. If you think this is small work, count how many pages fit in a book and how many books fit in a city. Then ask yourself, how many cities learn to plan armies, track taxes, teach children, and remember recipes because paper stayed cheap when parchment sulked? A page is a building material for minds. Cities that learned to make it got taller in the only way that lasts. Paper spreads like most useful things. People carry it because it solves problems, and empires copy it because they like control. It moves along trade routes, walks on the backs of merchants, sneaks in the luggage of prisoners, and shows up in the hands of local tinkerers who stare, poke, and say, "We can do this." When it reached the Islamic world, people with a talent for turning crafts into industries built mills. They did not worship the sheet. They made more of it. That is how you know a culture is serious. The first paper mills away from China did not look like fairy houses. They looked like factories. Water wheels turned hammers that beat pulp day and night. Men carried wet sheets in lines that felt like rain indoors. Women sized and burnished the dry pages so pens would glide. The air smelled like wet wood and glue. If you cannot love that, it is because you never held a clean page after the world told you to shut up and you wrote anyway. Books changed when paper walked in. Scrolls are fine for theater. You unroll, you read, you roll, you forget. Codices, the folded bound form that we still call a book, are better for finding things and for surviving clumsy hands. Paper made codices cheap enough to waste a page on a wide margin, so a student could write, "No, this is dumb" beside a bad line. That margin note is civilization saying try again to itself and not breaking the bank to do it. Paper did not just carry words. It carried numbers like a champion. Try long division with Roman numerals, and you will start swearing in Latin. Now try it with Indian Arabic numerals on a gridded paper page that holds columns like a good friend holds your spot. Suddenly a merchant can teach his kid to do the family accounts without tears. Accountants are not heroes. They are the wheels under the cart. Paper greased the axle. Governments pretended they liked poetry, but they really loved paper. Tax records, court orders, land grants, censuses, laws, all multiplied once a page cost less than a loaf. That kind of multiplication is power. You do not have a legal system if nobody can read what the law says on short notice. You have a rumor. Paper made law tilt toward memory instead of gossip. People do not write songs about that. They write receipts. Maps grew up on paper. A scroll map is a showpiece. A paper map can be folded, stuffed, unfolded, and compared against a coastline, while your hands shake in the wind. Captains do not need perfect truth. They need repeatable shapes and notes that do not smear. A paper chart that survives a wet sleeve can save a ship. You can keep your marble inscription. I will take a dry pocket and a page that does not tear when I am scared. Education changed shape. When a kid can own a book without bankrupting a family, a city gets more minds with muscles. Copying tables into notebooks is a workout for attention, and attention is the only muscle school really trains. Paper notebooks turned memory from a temple into a toolbox. You do not have to carry all truths in your head when a shelf can carry most of them, and your notes can carry the ones you need this week. Artists notice too. Ink on paper allows fast moves and fine lines. Painters sketch ideas before they commit to expensive work. Architects draw plans that can be passed around a table like bread. Music scribbles across staves until a song that only lived in a skull lives in a choir. Paper made drafts cheap. Cheap drafts made better results. That logic works anywhere you find pride and deadlines arguing. This is where you expect me to praise inventors. Fine. Praise is easy. Respect the millers and the water engineers. They turned a craft into flow. A vat without water is an embarrassment. A mill without steady power is a museum. The men who kept the wheels turning, who fixed gear teeth, who adjusted flow when the river pouted in summer, they made sure the city's brain did not dry out. They are not on coins. They should be. Here is your satire ration. People will talk forever about the genius of a poet and forget the woman who sized the paper so the ink did not feather into a black cloud. Genius is a house. Paper workers poured the foundation and checked for leaks. The poet just moved the furniture around and invited friends to clap. Take away the paper and watch how quickly the furniture sits in the mud. Paper was not saintly. It also carried lies and panic. Cheap words mean fast rumors. Some rulers loved paper so much they used it to drown truth under pamphlets. Welcome to the human condition. A sword and a pen are both tools. You judge a city by what it protects and what it punishes. Smart cities protect the habit of checking claims and punish the habit of forging signatures. Paper made both habits louder. The spread of paper into Europe turned copy shops into engines. Scribes went from holy men with cramps to small businesses that employed apprentices who all pretended their handwriting was neat. Then printing arrived, and paper turned that into a revolution with gears. A press without paper is a fancy doorstop. A paper mill without a press is still useful. Together, they multiplied knowledge so fast that even the censors needed a schedule. The math is boring, and that is why it matters. If a scribe could copy 2 or 3 pages an hour, and a press could print hundreds, your book supply stops being a trickle and becomes a weatherfront. Schools expand. Libraries bloom. People argue with footnotes. That last thing looks silly until you remember that footnotes are public receipts for the ideas you stole. A culture that files its receipts can survive drama because truth has addresses. Paper money is another ugly miracle. A king can promise this note equals that amount of grain, gold, tax credit, whatever we all agree counts. Suddenly you can carry market power in a pocket without a donkey. Does this invite fraud? Obviously. Does it also free trade from the physics of metal? Obviously. Paper turned economics into a conversation more than a weightlifting contest. Do not worry, the metal still shows up at parties to make everyone feel safe. But the long work is done with notes and trust. Paper also scaled the small mercies. Letters between people did not have to be carved in grief or wealth. Families wrote. Friends complained. Lovers scribbled nonsense that somehow mattered on rainy years. Bureaucrats sent dull orders that lowered the number of knives in alleys. Paper is a quiet crowd. It gathers many voices and asks you to listen like an adult instead of a firework. Let us be honest about the downsides. Paper burns. Empires burn libraries without breaking a sweat. Floods turn ledgers into porridge. Bugs eat the edges. That fragility makes some people sneer. Those people forget that what matters is not each page, but the habit of copying. If you copy often, losses are annoying, not terminal. Redundancy is a religion worth keeping. The best lesson paper ever taught: make more copies than you think you need, then make one more because you forgot somebody clumsy. The chemistry mattered, and not in a fussy way. Early papers used fibers that resist acids and time. Later, in a rush to make more sheets cheaper, mills used alum and wood pulp that broke down faster. Archives learned the hard way that cheap now can mean blank later. The cure was boring: better sizing, better storage, better habits. The lesson stands in every field. Speed without care is rot. Why did paper beat parchment where it did? Money, weight, speed, and the way ink hugs it. Parchment is durable, but it is a cow in disguise. A monastery could afford cows. A city of merchants needs thousands of pages by Tuesday. Paper is Tuesday's friend. You can teach a kid to fold, cut, and stitch it into a booklet by the end of class. That fact turned whole neighborhoods into schools without anyone passing a law. You want big names. Paper carried them all. Confucian exam rooms where candidates wrote essays until their hands forgot their own names. Record offices that track taxes because arguments get quieter when you can point to a line on a page. naval officers that issued charts so ships did not kiss rocks, city councils that wrote minutes so the loud man could not pretend the vote went the other way. Paper is the adult in the room, quiet, stubborn, deadly effective. Think of paper as a time machine that works at room temperature. A page from a century ago talks to you without translation if you share a language. That is a bench built between two moments. Stone can do this too, but stone is slow and heavy. Paper shows up at speed and sits where you want. The past becomes portable. That portability makes nonsense harder to sell because you can check what the last guy said by opening a drawer. Teachers use paper to turn effort into memory. Copying a good page forces the eye to slow down and notice where the line breaks and why. That is how a mind learns shape, not just facts. A world full of screens still uses this trick because it works. Write it down. Your hand teaches your head by dragging it through the work. Paper is the gym that charges almost nothing and still makes you sweat. Paper enabled science to be annoying in the most productive way. You have an idea. You test it. You write your method on paper so some other bored creature can do the same thing and tell you you are wrong. That is replication. Replication is a paper sport. You cannot replicate a rumor yelled at a dinner. You can replicate the steps on a page that tell you where to put the glass and when to stop heating. The partnership between paper and patience built the lab before the lab got fancy equipment. Paper licenses the small mind to contribute. Not small as in weak, small as in local. A farmer writes down planting dates and rainfall. A midwife records what worked with which mother. A blacksmith notes which iron batch cracked after 3 shoeings. None of these people need a university. They need a notebook and the habit of looking back before they guess. Over time, those small notes form a big memory. Cities built on big memory stop tripping over the same furniture every generation. Did paper end superstition? Number. People love magical thinking like cats love warm windowsills. But paper changed the ratio of nonsense to sense. When more pages hold useful tricks and the price to learn them is 1 market day's money, more hands get competent. Competent hands beat superstition politely by doing the job better and charging less. That is all progress really is. A unit price drop in pain. One more thing. Paper taught us to trust symbols we could not see being made. You do not watch the tax office write each line of your record. You just expect the page to be there and to match the last one. That expectation, boring as it sounds, is the spine of society. Distrust breaks faster in a world with no paper because every claim becomes an argument without receipts. Paper is receipts. A civilization without receipts is a festival until the food runs out. People think the digital world killed paper. It did not. It trained paper. The best systems still print the final, critical things. Not because we love trees, but because a sheet in a drawer survives a blackout without asking your password. Digital is fast and infinite. Paper is slow and stubborn. You want both. One for speed, one for certainty. If you think that is old-fashioned, try signing a house with a handshake and a cloud. Enjoy the court dates. Here is the small, sharp truth. The greatest gift of paper is how it makes thought cheap to try and cheap to keep. That is what changes a family, then a street, then a city. A page lets a kid fail 10 times on the same problem without anyone going broke or blind. It lets a shop test 3 price lists in a week. It lets a government explain a rule in writing, so a judge can smack a liar with his own signature. It is not glamorous. It is glorious anyway. If you want to honor paper, do not write a poem, build a good notebook, label it like a grown-up. Fill it with the stuff you want to remember when you are tired, because you will be tired. Tape in the weird receipt that will matter later. Draw the dumb sketch that will become a plan in 3 months. Write the time and date on the top of every page because your future self will wish you had. Paper is your friend if you treat it like a co-worker and not a prop. The story ends the way all useful stories end, with a room full of people doing a job that looks small and is actually the reason big jobs succeed. A vat steams, a screen drips, a row of sheets leans in the air, like flags of a country that never needs to invade anyone. In another room, someone sharpens a reed pen. In another, someone twists string to stitch a spine. In another, someone opens a blank page and finds courage where they did not expect it. That is paper, courage at scale. And when the flood comes, or the fire eats what men made, the survivors will look for dry sheets, pencils, anything that marks, and they will start again the same way every serious culture starts again, by writing down what they know before it leaks out of their skulls. Because memory is a leaky roof and paper is a bucket. Bring more buckets than you think you need. If you want a final rule to carry around, make it easy to write, cheap to copy, and simple to find. Copy it clean, label it so you can find it later, keep a spare. Paper rewards adults who plan for their own laziness. Write it down. Copy it clean, label it so you can find it later, keep a spare. Paper rewards adults who plan for their own laziness. Write it down. Copy it clean, label it so you can find it later, keep a spare. Paper rewards adults who plan for their own laziness.